3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
It's Monday. It's Monday. It really is. 7 o'clock. And that can mean only one thing. It's time for Reading the Signs, where me, Comedy John Ryan, and my comedian pals from all over the world are going to be talking about comedy, well-being, why we do it, how we cope. And that's where we need your help. We need you to send us your top tips for well-being. Be part of the show. Drop a comment in the box on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the mensradiostation.com website. It's going to be a great show, much better than last week. What we're trying to do is think exceptional, which, funnily enough, is the motto of WJ, our show's sponsors. WJ are the UK's leading road marking and highway maintenance company. They're working with us, we're working with you. Let's get to it. Again. What's going on? It's all going wrong. Welcome along to Reading the Signs with me, John Ryan, here on a Monday night on the mensradiostation.com. Each week, as you know, we talk to a friend of mine from the world of comedy. And this week, we've got an extra special guest that I'll tell you about in just a couple of minutes. But before that, let me know how you're getting on. How's your day been? How's Christmas worked out for you? What's your New Year's plans? Is it all going to work out well? Is it all going to be right? I've spent the day just trying to relax, get ready for a big trip I'm going on. So I had my COVID test, my PCR test. Now I've got to sit around and wait for the results and hope that this runny nose and sore throat I've got are just a cough. But life is often full of things, isn't it, that we can't really control. It's often full of events, shall we say, and incidents that can have an effect and an impact on us. It's not the end of the world, but it's a bit of a nuisance. Let's be honest. The gremlins are here today. So let's start. Let's just take a breath. Just take a moment. Tonight's guest is absolutely phenomenal. Charmian Hughes, who I've worked with many, many times over the years. She's one of the funniest people I've ever known, not just as a comedian, but just as a very engaging person whose company you cannot fail to enjoy. She's got the greatest anecdotes of anyone I've ever known in my life. I first met her probably about 20 years ago. Yeah, about 20 years ago at a gig called East Dulwich Tavern, where she was hosting the show with an accordion, which just I'd never seen anyone use that instrument before, other than at an Irish funeral, Irish wedding, or just some sort of Irish event. And there she was, plinkety away, had me enthralled and captivated from then. And ever since, I've never failed to be entertained by her. She's not just a great comic. She also runs courses, is very supportive of other acts on the circuit, and was, in my opinion, one of the most entertaining people on social media during lockdown. So she certainly helped me get through it and a lot of other people. But best way to find out about her is to greet the awesome person herself. That's it. That's the introduction, Charmian. You're here.
Hi, John.
Yeah. Are you well? Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm all right.
You always strike me as being pretty upbeat and bonny, I think is the word I'd use.
Yeah. I'm quite a positive person. So I often will dig myself out of a dark period by just focusing on, there are cheery things round the corner, even if it's just something on the telly like Casualty, where you can watch people
who are suffering worse than we are. Wow. Can I ask you, when you were a kid, I always like to find out a little bit about my guests. Where were you brought up?
Well, I was an army family. So, because my dad was in the army, I was born in Germany.
Wow.
My mother's family lived in Harpenden in Hertfordshire, which is where I spent most of my childhood. But we also spent a bit of time in a really bleak place called Lark Hill, which is on Salisbury Plain. Do you know, it's quite it's quite primeval and Neolithic, has that kind of energy. So I moved to London when I was 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you in the family? Are you an only child, or are there a few of you?
Sorry?
How many siblings did you have? Are you an only
Well,
child?
I'm
Are
one
there
of
a few of you?
6. I was one of 6. I mean, not everybody's around anymore. But I'm from a blended family. So both my parents, when they married, were very young widows. My mother's first husband had been killed in the Korean War. My father's first wife in some freak accident after the
Wow.
war. They already had children. They married. They had me. So like I was one of 6 and related to everybody, but not fully. So I always felt a bit kind of left out, that I wasn't, a full blood sibling of anyone in my family.
Oh, I'll adopt you. You can have a join my family. We'd be
Oh,
honoured to have
thank
you.
you.
Oh, you are not alone. So, were you a happy child?
Sorry.
Were you a happy child? Happy. Were you happy?
Um, I don't think I was a happy child. I think that I tried to be positive and joyful, but I think there was a lot going on in my family. My parents were, they were trying to divorce, I think, for the first 10 years of my life, and then managed it. Um, and I think that because I'm 65, my generation of parents, I think, were really traumatized by war and being bombed. And I think that, things that we take for granted with our children about their emotional well-being and that kind of thing were seen as totally like irrelevant, like, but they survived the war, thought all that kind of stuff was irrelevant. So I think I found it quite difficult, actually, my child. I mean, materially we were okay. There's never a problem with that. So I know that's, a major problem for many families. But I just think the stuff with my parents, and then because there was a big age gap between my brothers and sisters, my eldest brother was about 14 years older than me, and he was killed in a car crash when 24, and I was 10. And that really, obviously, it's a very sad thing for the family, but it sort of sent my mother even more into a kind of spiral of kind of quite eccentric, I mean, she was quite a cheery person as well, but she was quite difficult. So, I mean, after going through the war, I think that losing her oldest son, obviously, the most terrible thing that can happen to you. So,
Wow.
yeah, but I try
Wow.
to be happy.
It's quite interesting because I've been doing some work with an organisation in Northern Ireland, looking at the impact of the Troubles on second generation kids. So it's not the guys that were actually involved in the Troubles; it's their children and their children's children. Because the thing about like PTSD, for example, is that it's not
Yeah.
necessarily just an immediate impact. It can somehow be several smaller impacts over a period of time, prolonged. So it's quite an interesting one. There's quite a bit of work being done on
Yeah.
the next generation post World War II, and it fascinates me that we always go, "Oh, the war was a great period in British history. Britannia ruled the waves," but there was no thought about the impact on the civilians that these guys came home to.
Hmm.
Do you think that has an impact on your own parenting?
No, no.
Yes, it's an interesting one, though, isn't it?
Sorry.
Is that everyone
Could you repeat
has.
that? Sorry.
Do you think it had an impact on your own parenting? The that kind of distance that you had,
Like an impact on me, on
yeah, on how you
I
acted as a
that
parent.
what you said about the parent not having as much impact is so true, because they were the survivors and they had to
Yeah,
keep it together. And I think the impact, is that what you're saying? So the sound
yeah,
isn't great.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. The It's just about how that then impacted on you as an adult when you came to raise your own children.
Oh, I see what you mean. I am quite as a parent, I've been very strong on boundaries. Well, quite strong boundaries, but also I think learning from that about what's important and what's not important. Because another thing I found about my parents, which a lot of people whose parents have been through trauma probably find, is they focused on the petty. They got really riled by things that really matter. It was kind of made everybody anxious. My mother would get very upset and angry about things that really didn't matter. I suppose that was the way of her processing her trauma. So I try to not be like that. But I had therapy when I was 34, which I think kind of got into perspective a lot of the things that I've taken up, the less me started kind of adult I'm going to be, and I was able to go back and I suppose recover. I did find it quite traumatizing having all these angry people. I don't mean physically violent, but people who were just cross all the time, just all the time about sort of nothing, about the washing up or I have to stop myself also being like that, because I see myself start to fixate on really tiny things that aren't important, like a Christmas tree.
Christmas tree. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I always felt it a bit strange when we talked about the war and, what did Granddad do during the war? Because I was from an immigrant family, we had no association with it. But my parents were quite cold and detached purely because of the kind of brutal way they'd been brought up. And it's interesting how it impacts on future generations as it goes on and it moves on. I've tried to break the mold. My parents weren't very tactile. They used to focus on the little things. My dad was a very calm man, never really raised his voice, unless the toaster setting was changed or you didn't put the milk back in the fridge. You could come home and say, "I've killed someone," and he'd be like, "All right, I'd help you hide the body." But if you left the butter out on the side, that didn't go down well. So basically, I think he would have preferred us to be murderers rather than wasteful of dairy products.
So I think that maybe you're young, a lot younger, but being the child as you think, I think that are we less depressed than our own children, who are the children of people who've tried to be more compassionate? Has it stopped anything in way of people growing up to feel a bit bad about themselves?
Yeah. No, I see that. I do see that. So, what were you like at school then? Were you like the cheerful kid in the class? Were you quiet? How did you get through school?
I've got no sound from you now, John, at all.
Not at all. That's very strange.
I wish we had. It's
can
very
you do something with your volume?
Am I okay?
No, you're not.
It's not the volume. It's crackling.
Okay. That's interesting.
Let me check my. Sorry.
That's okay. While you do that, you just make your little checks. I'll just witter away here. It's an interesting one. If anyone's got any experience of it, about this whole post-traumatic stress, I did a research paper on it with Maya Twaziki and some of the people at the King's College Medical Foundation, Army and Medical Foundation. And it's all about how attrition and the constant bombardment of abuse, even if it's small, can have an impact on you. And it's quite difficult for people to understand that it's quite subjective if you've been through it. But if we haven't, like I said, we imagine it's young squaddies getting shot at. That's pretty difficult. But actually, I believe PTSD levels amongst the military run at about 8%, but amongst teenage girls runs at about 17%. So that's quite an interesting sort of variant, isn't it? Are you back? Can you hear me now? Are you?
David's just going to look at my microphone. My father was actually in the war. He's just It's very crackly, David.
So
We've got nothing on that at all.
I
We're on
use-
like you live on the radio now.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. So are you using
Hey, David.
this microphone on?
Not at all, because it doesn't work.
Oh,
Hello.
that's okay.
Where
It's
am I?
all,
Oh, there I am.
it's all part of recording live. David, welcome.
Are you saying that you can't hear Charmian very well?
No, it's that John breaks up.
I seem to be breaking up. This seems to be a problem, I believe, at your end, given that my picture is
Yes, I
consistent.
understand.
And I've done about 4 Zoom sessions today, which have all kind of.
Check my.
So I've always wanted to say this. It's not me,
Maybe
it's
you
you.
can try the computer again.
Yeah, try probably on the computer. It's frozen.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's me. Yeah.
We're breaking
It
up. It's not me, it's you.
Hang on. I want to wait to find out, David. Oh, you know, all the years I thought you were a great man. And it turns out you were just waiting to get rid of me.
I'm gonna just try a different thing. I'm really sorry about this.
Not a problem, mate. Not a problem
But
at all.
yeah, so part of the time I'm kind of like working out what you're saying. Whoops.
It's conversation by body language, which again is interesting because one of the sessions I did today was on non-verbal communication and about how face masks are affecting people who work in customer services. This was mainly with NHS staff, and it's about them being able to identify people who are going to be difficult, where you can only see their eyes.
Right.
So yeah, it's quite relevant to have you. I'm just going to mute your mic for a second. It's quite relevant to have you having the same problems. This is a really difficult time of year for people, as we know, because Christmas is very isolating. December is the darkest month of the year. By the time this show goes out, we'll be past the shortest day of the year, so things are on the up. We're heading back towards summertime, but it's quite cold, dark, can be quite lonely for people and quite isolating. So it's always good to check in on people if you can, if you get a chance. Go and pop next door, see if your neighbours are all right, or just say hello to people as and when you go up and down the street. We seem to have lost Charmian for a moment. I don't know where she's gone, but it's okay. We can get through this. Just thought I'd take this opportunity to thank WJ, the UK's leading road marking specialist, for their contribution and their support of us over the last 6-7 months that the show's been running. Hope that obviously that relationship continues into the new year. If we have anyone out there, if you're listening, if you've got any questions, do please put them in the box. Obviously, if you're listening on the 3rd of January, your comments won't get answered straight away. However, they're not going to be sort of ignored. I am trying at the moment to still establish contact with Charmian, and hopefully we can get back on track with that. January, always a very difficult time. We've got the 17th of January coming up, and the 17th of January, as you know, is known as Blue Monday, which is a day when people struggle more so than virtually any other time of the year. Charmian, seems that you have muted yourself. Charmian, if you can still hear me. Let's just go send that message. So it is, Blue Monday as it comes up. People get down, they get pretty glum. It's a tough time of year for people, especially post-Christmas, when everyone else seems to have been having a great time, and all around you, everyone seems to be happy. And then suddenly the reality of life comes crashing back onto you. Let's see if we can get through to Charmian again. I am private messaging you if you can see that. Try to message and keep talking at the same time. Not the easiest thing to do. But even in these dark days when winter is tough, there are little things that we can do to try and protect ourselves. A couple of things. I know it sounds a bit simple, but going for a walk is just a great thing to do. I know Charmian is a fan of going swimming in freezing cold water. Doesn't really do it for me, but it seems to be something that she quite enjoys doing. We're now going to try and get her on another stream. Right, here we go. Let's try this again then. Are you now going to try another way of doing it?
I'm back.
Okay, well, that seems better. Welcome back.
Sorry, I'm using my phone now. Don't know what was going on. Okay.
It's technology. Technology. You're a lady of a certain age, and there will be certain excuses made for you. Are we comfortable now?
I'm comfortable.
Now look, you get all glamorous. So tell us then, what made you decide to start doing comedy? What was that all about? How did that come about?
I had a job in advertising, and which I'd been striving to get something, a creative kind of job for quite a long time. And I just found it very depressing. It disappointed me. And I ran into somebody I'd been at university with who was doing clowning at the City Lit. And I thought I'd go and do some clowning classes just to meet some new people and, you know, get a different kind of life. And that's what I did. And then I started going to more and more things like circusy things, and I found myself giving up my job in advertising, joining a clown troupe and doing shows. I was fantastically happy. And then I saw my first stand-up comedy, and just thought, there's a thing where I don't need to juggle or do a roly-poly. I think that's more suited to me. So I went for it.
And then the rest is history.
The rest is history. And as a result of that, you know, as part of my optimism, I don't really worry to become really famous. I mean, not really worry about it. I don't worry about it, because the kind of liberation of doing something like this and not doing the job that I did is like a gift. You know, it's like a miracle. It's just a wonderful thing to be able to not be doing what I was doing before. And I knew how happy my kind of younger self would be to know that I ended up doing this.
Do you see yourself as a comic then, or as a writer, or as a teacher? How do you separate the different bits?
Well, how do I think of myself? It's saying.
Yeah. How do you see yourself?
I see myself mainly as a stand-up comedian, and I think, to my definition, you know, it's using jokes to express myself. So that's my form, in a way like I used to write poetry in my 20s. I kind of think there's a lot of similarity. And when I teach comedy, I love sharing, you know, what knowledge I've got and helping other people express themselves in that way and find that bit of themselves, whether they're going to use it just to increase their confidence or actually go into stand-up comedy. And then with sort of storytelling, I think when I've done one woman longer shows, I do have a theme, and there are things that I want to explore that need a bit more time than kind of as if it was just expressed in jokes. There has to be, you know, there's a story. And I think in a way, all jokes have a story inside them. Even if it's like a one-liner, they're like the shortest stories in the world.
So where was your first gig?
First gig, stand-up gig, probably about 1986.
Wow.
A open spot at the Tunnel Palladium.
Tunnel Club.
Sunday night. I did a few, but that was the one I really remember. And I did a few tiny things in pop-up comedy. Well, they were variety clubs that people set up, but the Tunnel is the one I really remember. And it was strangely successful in that I got a booking out of it.
It's interesting because Kevin McCarthy we had on recently, and he had his first gigs were at the Tunnel Club as well. And we forget how important that venue was, and you know, Malcolm Hardy's role in bringing people through.
It taught you a kind of fearlessness about going out there thinking, I will make them laugh. I can make them laugh. And my act was very, very silly at the time, and it was very clowny. I think I probably still wore a red nose. But it was after they booked me and I started to do 20-minute sets there that kind of the trouble started at the Tunnel. You know, pushing that fearlessness into making an act that meant I wasn't kind of hummed off after 10 minutes, which I was many times. It was kind of joy. Did you play the Tunnel ever, John? The Tunnel was after your time.
Yeah, it was after my time. Yeah. Do you think it was easier for female acts in the late 80s? Did we go through a period in the 90s where that Laddish culture took over?
I think it's easier for all acts in that I think that comedy has actually got better. Comedians have got better And I think audiences have got better. I think audiences know how to listen. They've kind of evolved. And in the days of the tunnel, it was quite a new thing, that kind of alternative stand-up. And so audiences didn't really know what they were listening to. Acts didn't really know what they were doing. There was a lot of just barking, ideas. And I think now I am so impressed by the level of, comedy. And I think just being listened to means that women comics are able to do what they do and, develop that act and not have that act as a kind of reaction to a negative audience. Because a lot of us, we were writing acts that were kind of a response to the worst thing you could imagine a heckler saying. You had to anticipate that and think, I've got to come back with something really funny. And audiences are better behaved. They're not allowed to. It's not really about them anymore. If you get kicked out of an audience, don't you? If you start shouting and heckling, trying to back the act.
It's interesting for me because even in the time that I've done it, I've been doing comedy for 20 years now. I've noticed there are less acts like you who are just genuinely funny, a bit quirky, a bit left field, and there's much more of a kind of corporate sort of sameness about the circuit now, which I think is quite sad.
Do you think it's a bit like food, that there are some dishes that are going to be a reliable hit, if not that adventurous, and can be sold to corporate, events or various comedy clubs? That it's going to be reliable. There's not going to be any risk. Maybe it's about that.
Yeah, it's about risk. I think, certainly. I think Lenny Beige, I think he's always one of my favourite comics. Lenny Beige, Martin Sohn, Chris Lynham. People are just a bit different. And it seemed to me that at some stage we stopped encouraging this sort of real diversity, because even now where we've got, more people of colour, women and other kind of orientations coming through, they all seem to be pretty samey. It all seems to be pretty interchangeable, A with B, B with C.
I think maybe that's true of that. There is a particular, maybe it's because audiences like to feel safe with the type. I mean, I think the key to successful, like comedy, in a way, is people need to know, who is this person? What am I watching? And a lot of the guys are, I'm a young man, I'm talking about my relationship problems, and I look this particular way. And audiences kind of connect with that, and they, tune into that. But also, I think, look at the number of people with disabilities, who are our top acts. There's Rosie Jones and Tim, and I think there's a lot more of let's listen to different kinds of people, of their experience. But I think there is a kind of club act that it's to learn how to become that, and to successfully become that kind of act without giving away any of yourself.
Yeah, I think so. One of the many things that I always loved about you was that your storytelling. You can tell a yarn. Again, in Irish society, there was always this guy called the Shonachie who would just travel from village to village, tell you a story in return for a cup of tea and some food. And I remember once, I can't remember if it was your night or someone else's night, but you told this incredible story about your father going to the dentist.
Yeah. And my father told me that story.
And it's just that thing of handing it down. And what I love about storytelling is that whether your father is alive or not, he will always be alive whilst I remember that story. And then when I tell people that story, it passes it on, doesn't it?
He was a very good storyteller. And I don't know how much of that story was true, but part of the background to all his stories was the fact that he was, when I was born in Germany, he and my mother had been in Germany for like quite a few years after the cleanup after the war, you know, posted as article there. And I think there were very dark things. There was a lot of smuggling and black market stuff, and people, you know, like the third man, that kind of exploitation going on. And his story, it had a lot of that kind of darkness and awful things happen in ruined cities. But there was a story he used to tell me as a bedtime story that used to scare the bejesus out of me. And it was only in later life that I realized he was telling me, and I was about 7 or 8 listening to this story, he was telling me the plot of the film Les Diaboliques. Do you know that film,
brilliant.
John?
No, I don't. Can you just quickly surmise it for us?
It's a woman is married to a headmaster in a isolated school, and he's a horrible bullying man, and he also has a mistress, and the mistress and the wife plot to murder the husband, and they drown him. Wow. And he's alive. The plot between the mistress and the man, and he rises out of the bath like a dead corpse and scares the wife to death. And that's what my father told me as a bedtime story.
Nice. Yeah. Well, just wonderful. I had an uncle who used to tell us great stories, and I used to in turn tell my kids' bedtime stories were not really out of books. I once told my 2 youngest, especially took more notes of it, that we had relatives in Ireland, Scotland, and Papua New Guinea. And basically that there had been, they were going down to Australia, and the guys going to Botany Bay, who were going as prisoners, convicts, decided to take over the ship and kill the crew. But their great uncle, my children's great uncle, Podrick, he said he wanted no part of it. So they decided to kill him by throwing him overboard. And because he was like really popular amongst the crew, they thought, well, look, we'll let you go in a barrel of baked beans, so you'll have some food. And he got circled by sharks, and he survived by hand feeding the sharks the baked beans. And consequently, there's a family in Papua New Guinea that are named the same names as us. And there are also vegetarian sharks off the coast of Papua New Guinea, nowhere else on the planet. Well, I thought no more of this until my daughter decided to tell the class this. Got laughed at, and I think had a bit of a punch-up. So I guess there's a lesson in there somewhere in that. The teacher saying, well, she's told the class this. And I had to go, well, it's true. It's true. My daughter's not a liar. How dare you? So I guess the art of storytelling is to make it so convincing that, you know, it sounds believable. Even now, I'm kind of half convinced it might be true. So how did you survive lockdown? Because I've got to be honest with you, your fashion shows were absolutely phenomenal. That was one of the highlights of our week.
So I had a lot of fun. It accidentally, you know, I started wearing more colourful clothes when I went out with the dogs. We adopted a lovely dog, and David took some pictures, and then I started giving myself the challenge of wearing something different every day, because I'm not a hoarder, but I've got a lot of my own clothes. I just had an outfit every day. We took a photo, then I made it into a calendar, which I let Christmas off. But I did it on Facebook, and it was just my Facebook page. So I never made it a big public thing. I haven't really got a big social media presence beyond the people who are my Facebook friends. I have not really, you know, on Twitter, I try, but I got about 2 followers. That was really fun. And I didn't really have the energy to do again. But I did that. I used to do a few little exercise routines for my followers. I think what happened with the first lockdown is we tried to be very good, and then we got all exhausted, didn't we? We thought that's it.
I think so.
Anyway.
Let me just. I've got a question. What? One of our listeners has a question for you. Jim Pollard, who's editor of Men's Health Forum, really great guy who's I've worked with quite a lot. He wants to know if you've managed to sleep since your bedtime stories. That's just. Did you tell your kids the same stories?
Well, Jim, that's a very.
What about-
I think I was really scared at night with stories. So it was like the fairies told me you did this, and the fairies told me you did. I mean, she was a spy basically. So I had to worry about as well. Yeah, maybe comedy is an antidote to those stories.
It just.
I do sleep quite well though.
So we would honestly, on a daily basis, have a little look at your Facebook page, see what's she wearing today. When you start the exercise routines, that was just hilarious. That was just. I've only been warned by Facebook twice in 20 years. Once was when I posted a very uncomplimentary message about David Cameron, and the other was when I edited your your fashion video with the Pussycat Dolls. They're the only two times I've ever gotten to anywhere near Facebook jail. All very strange. For some reason, we seem to have lost you again there. I don't know. Are you on your phone on the internet, or are you using your 4G or 5G network? Do you know?
I just missed the.
Yeah. Well, you seem to have frozen again.
I heard you were. It
was. I've no idea what keeps happening.
I found.
No, not getting anything from you. Not hearing you at all. Yeah,
oh
again,
I'm just going to pretend I knew what you asked me then. I love doing the fashion thing. I asked people to give me a tune to learn every day. I worked out a accordion tune a day. I do all recordings. I did Telstar. I did. Anyway.
Loads. Have you moved around your room somehow, away from either your modem or from your window?
Gone quiet. Oh.
It's okay. Don't panic. We seem to have lost you again.
What's that?
Hang on. Let's just message you one more time. Okay. So I need you to move back to where you were sitting originally, because you seem to have a much stronger
John,
signal.
I'm not hearing you.
Okay. Very strange. I wonder if who we got listening at the moment. We got Jim.
Hearing you.
Jim, thank you, Jim. Jim Pollard, if you are able to hear me clearly, if you could just let me know in the comments box, that'd be really good. The thing is, Jim, I've packed all my clothes because I'm going away. So I can only wear the things I haven't packed. This T-shirt being one of them, mate. But thank you for noticing my rather trendy beachwear that I'm not allowed to bring with me because it makes me look stupid. I am endeavouring to talk to Charmian Hughes, an absolutely wonderful stand-up comic, writer, performer, and teacher. We are having some little technical problems for some reason that I can't quite work out. What I need, Charmian, if you I'm going to send you a message. Let me just see if I can. That's great. I sent a message to say I need you to move. And it ended up sending it wrong. Just says I need you, or your modem. So we are here on a Monday night with Charmian Hughes as our guest. Our little.
Any other place?
Okay, Charmian still trying to talk. So, thanks to WJ, the UK's leading road marking specialist, for all their help and their support.
Now.
Let's try that. I think because you're moving around, because we're using a video signal, it may be just a little bit demanding on your phone.
Okay.
So If it's possible for you to move nearer to
Okay.
a window or your modem, that will be brilliant. So
Where's the modem? Where's the modem?
there you go. Yeah, next to your
Okay,
your
I was
Wi-Fi.
right next to the modem, John. Sorry, I'm not
Okay.
getting any better.
Okay. That seems to be working a bit clearer. Let's try
I'm
somewhere
right
else.
next to the
We're
modem,
moving.
John.
There you go. This is like, do you remember Annika Rice, the treasure hunt? This is like watching you give us a guided tour of your fantastic house. I have a clear picture, but no sound coming from you at the moment. Okay. All right. Well, while we're working on that, let's have a little. Okay. Well, Jim's saying that he can hear me and not Charmian. Thanks, Jim, mate. I may have to give you a shout, get you in on a chat. She'll send you a link, Jim, if you're about. If you've got a few minutes free, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, the thing is, Charmian, that because we're having so much difficulty hearing
Oh,
you.
I hear you now.
You can hear me now. Okay. All right. Well, let's continue a little bit. What was the best gig you think you've ever done?
Yeah.
No.
Like, our local Wi-Fi.
I am trying to hear. It's obviously slightly frustrating for you, but you know what? This is just how it goes. I guess we just have to work with it and see what we can do. Hopefully, Jim, you've got my message, and if you get a chance, if you click on the link, come and join us for a chat, mate. That'd be much appreciated.
No, I can't.
If not, then don't worry about that. We were trying to talk to Charmian Hughes, great comedian, writer, and teacher. While she's sorting out her technical itches, we can have a little look at how the world is with this whole COVID thing. We've recorded this at the end of December, so it being the start of January, I wonder what things have changed in the intervening period. Charmian, are you able to hear me now? Okay. We will press on in the hope
I can hear you now.
All right then. Well, just chat to me, mate, and I'll listen. And then when you start going, I will message you.
Okay.
So what we're
I'm so sorry about all the links and everything.
That's all right.
I'm thinking, Christmas is a difficult time for people now, whether it's lockdown or not. And I was thinking about how, if people get very isolated this Christmas or they don't get to see people, that sometimes it's quite good to hang on to the idea that having a break from all that can be quite a good thing, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time. And I was thinking, because we're in 2021, and it's 30 years ago I spent just on my own, because I just found other people and relatives just so difficult to be around when you feel kind of like, a bit down and stuff like that. And people think that you're depressed, but actually you just need that space away from all that. And I came out of it at the end, feeling great. Yeah. David thinks he can get into the room on your phone. His phone.
Okay. All right. That's not a problem. We can. That's not a problem. It's difficult because, as you've said, sometimes people want to be on their own. Sometimes people are sad and not necessarily depressed, but very often. Here you go. We're going to try this one. Yep, we are trying attempt number 5. David, you're a legend, mate.
Yeah, we're here. He's a legend. It's very, very soft.
That's okay. I don't understand why that is, unless it's just. What have we got on there? Roses are red. I was reading his T-shirt then, and he disappeared. Shocking. So, Charmian, tell us, what's a typical Christmas for you now? Then, how would you spend?
What kind of Christmas?
Yeah.
Well, on Christmas Day, we're normally quite quiet. Just us kind of hibernating away with some nice food. We go to the pub in the morning. Might go to midnight mass the night before. Go meet friends in the pub or even in the park. If we're not allowed to meet them, just meet 2 or 3 friends. Come back, have the food, just
that kind of thing. This Christmas, I think on Boxing Day, David's father's got mild dementia and is, you know, he's living on his own, but he has support. And he's with another brother on Christmas Day. So we're going to go down on Boxing Day and bring all our food, sleeping bags and dog and just camp out there for 24 hours.
Would you have a suggestion for people who maybe struggle at Christmas, or that kind of thing about the sadness, the winter gloom? What, any ideas of how people can make it more bearable?
Sorry?
How can people make Christmas more bearable? How can they
Make it more bearable?
Yeah.
I think that not having huge expectations. About when I was a child, I used to kind of want the perfect Christmas, and I'd get very excited about it, and I'd feel a bit kind of disappointed at the end of it. Not disappointed with anything material, but you feel a bit empty because there's been so much excitement, and then it's such a downer. And I think just feel like a hibernating hedgehog and enjoy that kind of peace and darkness. And I just love I'll tell you, you asked me about all my fashion calendar and everything. My achievement of lockdown was all the box sets I watched.
Wow.
I watched all of Spooks. That is 10 series of Spooks in 4 weeks.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's what Christmas means to me. I think enjoy the hibernation. Enjoy the changing, try and notice the changing season, even if it's just kind of walking around the block or opening your window, because it is kind of like evolved from a pagan thing, isn't it, where we notice the changing seasons. Christmas, or whatever it is in pagan terms, is about getting through winter with some kind of optimism and hope.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult one, isn't it? And then, like I said, we go into January. We have Blue Monday on the 17th, which is when depression rates soar, and it's just how we can get through that. And how do you think, as comedians, do you think we're wired differently to survive these kind of things?
I think that we are possibly, yes, I think we're wired differently, but there are people who aren't, who kind of know how to become a comedian in order to become very professional and efficient what they do. Maybe they're wired in an efficient way, but I think that with a lot of us comics, we're hungry for the instant approval and all the instant judgment that comedy gives us. There's something about that, a bit about being told you're okay or told you're bad, that you kind of like, you're triggered by that, so that you want more of that, maybe because you've had it as a child. And also, I think we see the world in a different way. I mean, I never stop thinking about stuff, maybe not as a joke, but as a story. If I'm immersed in an emotional experience, like someone's died or I'm a funeral, I already begin to kind of see the pattern, see the story pattern, which feels a bit inappropriate. But I can't. I do that. I'm always seeing patterns and stories. A lot of people are being diagnosed as adult autists, and I wonder if we've got a bit of that.
Yeah, I think like one of the problems I have is listening to people's opinions. I struggle with that. I always have. If I respect you, I'll listen to you, but I can't let you tell me what to do if I don't. Like if I don't think you're a good mum, you can't tell me how to raise my kids. And even if I'm making a mistake, I just won't listen. And I know it's a flaw, but I've always struggled with it. And because we do comedy and no one really challenges us, we're allowed to have these views unopposed. And that can make it quite difficult in relationships, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's how we then combat it, and how do you then go, no, it works for me, I'm going to keep doing it.
And do you think, well, that in a way, surely that's how poets work. They see something, they feel something, and they turn it into a poem.
Yeah.
and we turn it into stories and jokes, and it's the same instinct to kind of see a kind of logic in our own experience.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's my things. If I don't like it, I just don't do it, and it's terrible, really, because it works for me. So it's really simple. It's very, very simple for me. If I'm not comfortable, I'd rather you're uncomfortable than me be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh, you would rather someone else was uncomfortable than you were
Yeah,
comfortable. Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I'm the other way around. Other
Nah.
people's well, I'm better now, but I think in the past, other people's discomfort would really make me anxious.
Yeah, no, don't bother me. Never bothers me at all. So I've
Yeah.
got very, very thick skin, and I'm very hard to offend. So,
Oh,
so consequently, I don't understand why other people get offended. So I'm like, what? So if I say something that you're upset with, well, you're not going to die, are you? You're not on
no.
fire. You're not going to lose anything. What's the issue? What's the problem?
Oh, yeah.
So
No. Oh,
yeah,
by uncomfortable, I don't mind if someone's uncomfortable because of an opinion, but I wouldn't want to. I don't like hurting people.
yeah, I'm like that. I do. I am like that. But
I don't mind making them. I see what you mean. Yeah.
if there's an awkward conversation to be had, we'll have it, because I'm not going to be, like, yeah, we had a visitor come round to stay once who wanted to smoke. That's not a problem. We're non-smokers. Smoke in the garden, that's fine. But they left all their cigarette butts in a big pile on my decking. And I was like, and they actually made a point of saying they hate it when people get finicky about cigarette butts because they're biodegradable. So I'd say, look, here's the thing. They are biodegradable, but I want you to pick them up. And then their argument was no. And I said, well, I appreciate you want to go home now. Thank you. Goodbye. And effectively threw them out, which then that took some explaining. My thing was, no, it's making me feel awkward. So I'm not going to feel awkward in my own house.
Yeah.
So,
They need to know. I agree with you there.
yeah.
I'm much better nowadays at kind of saying something like that if I feel that.
So do you think that protects you mentally? Could you think of like a tip you could give people that works for you, that keeps you on point, or when you're struggling?
I think it protects you mentally to have strong boundaries.
Oh, that's
And
good. I like that.
I've got stronger ones than I used to have, and I've had a lot of fallouts in the last couple of years where I have said, I'm not taking that, to people who are friends or relatives who I would have let it over the years. I let it go, and maybe they think I'm the kind of person that it's all right to kind of push, from the past, and just affirming my boundaries in quite a polite way has been enough to create a big fallout in at least 2 relationships of mine the last couple of years, where I've just said, I know, don't do that. Don't say
But
that.
surely,
Don't do
as we grow as people, we should change our relationships. I know a few people are really proud that they've had the same friends for 30 years.
Yeah.
And my argument always is, well, you need to change, don't you? You need to grow up, all of you.
Yeah.
Meet new people, have new experiences. But because we're comics, I know that you'll have friends in other part of the country, in other parts of the world, that you have deep and really meaningful friendships with. But that normal people, they're like, no, how can you be mates with someone you haven't seen for 2 years?
Yeah.
Maybe that's that thing.
And
Well,
I think that we just get firmer about knowing what shit we're not going to take. Also, as we get older, we understand that we need to look after ourselves. And I also have to stop myself interfering in other people's lives when they're not looking after themselves. But I feel I also need to say something, because a lot of people don't say stuff. They don't say anything because it's very difficult when you see people destroying themselves through, once you're in your 50s, if you're still sort of drinking really heavily and smoking really heavily. And I think you must know, but maybe people don't know because nobody ever says anything.
Yeah. I think that is a fair point. And probably a great point to leave you on. What have we got to look forward to then? What you got coming up? Any gigs or books or?
Well, I was meant to go to Wales tomorrow, but I cancelled that because I pulled my hamstring dancing a couple of weeks ago.
Brilliant.
So
Brilliant.
in the wrong shoes. So I can't driving a long distance isn't great. But I've got a bring your own baby gig next
Okay.
week, which is I don't know if you've ever heard of any of those, John.
Yeah.
For new parents or carers, you can go out at lunchtime, take your baby and watch an adult comedy show, and you don't need a babysitter.
That's
and
brilliant.
I'm doing one in Penge on Tuesday, I think. This Tuesday?
Wow.
Yep, Tuesday
Fantastic.
at the Bridge House. So that'd be really
Thank you.
good fun. And then I think I've got some small things. And then in the new year, I am back at the wonderful King's Head. I think
Best
on the
gig.
5th or 6th
Best
of
gig in the
January,
world. Love
which
it.
is my
Love it.
favourite gig.
Yeah.
I'll be
Me too.
comparing that. And see how we go. And I am, going to catch up with a few friends, and my children have just come back home from various things. So I'm looking forward to a bit of that.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully I'll see you in the new year. Thank you ever so much for giving us an hour of your time tonight.
I'm lovely. I hope that the various interruptions have not been too annoying.
Gave you texture, mate. Gave you texture.
But you've been really great. And I hope everybody has, a peaceful and healthy, a mentally healthy, good time
Life.
over the next couple of weeks, and just stay in there.
Stay in there. You take care. Speak soon.
You too, John. Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. Well, that was Charmian Hughes. I just think she's just a wonderful human being, just a great company and very engaging. What I was particularly interested in was her concept of protecting yourself by having strong boundaries. That's a new one. No one's come up with that one before. It's something I'm very, very clear on in my relationships with people. I have a distance from me that I would prefer people not to cross. But then I appreciate not everyone thinks the same way. Each week we come up with different tips for wellbeing from our guests. Kev McCarthy said, just talk to people, which I thought was quite an interesting one. When you're walking down the street, you see someone, just say hello. If you see someone on their own, just say hello. How are you doing? We're all in this life together. Why do we have to keep separate? Dave Ward talked about having a routine and a structure, which I thought was quite a good one. Kev Hawkin was all about the power of positive thought. Phil Doyle talked about positive people. So again, it's all about other people. It's all about the impact that others have on us. And we can seriously underestimate that at different times. I thought that Dana, her point about having someone to share your journey with was great, because, life is tough, especially if you're on your own. Michael Straney thought about not fixating on things that you can't control. But you know what? Still my favorite, Sol Bernstein, battle it out. Life ain't easy. Wilson Milton talked about sorting your physical health out. It's just interesting how different people have different things. My top tips will always be the same. Reframe those unhelpful thoughts. Don't listen to that voice that says, oh, they're being horrible to me. Try and be in the present. The future's not here. The past is gone. The present, it's a gift. Let's be honest, without sounding all American. I believe it's a gift, the present, the current time. Remove those negative, toxic people from your life where possible. If you're in a job and you're getting bullied, just leave. It's not for you to sort these people out. They will get their comeuppance. If you're in a relationship where you don't like the people, get out, leave. There's no need for you to stay around toxic people or toxic situations. So each week, as you know, if you listen to us regularly, we have different guests on from the world of comedy. Tonight's guest, Charmian Hughes, absolutely fascinating human being and great company. Do please check out and see where she's gigging. Each week, we'll get those top tips, and let's hope that they long continue. Big thanks as ever to WJ for all your support you've given us all year. I hope you guys have a great start to the new year, and that, life gets better and that you continue moving forward. Take care, and we'll be back next week. Well, that's the end of another episode of Reading the Signs with me, Comedy John Ryan. We're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. talking with comedians about mental wellness, mental well-being, and just trying to get the conversation going. What we're trying to do is show that it's good to talk, and we're also trying to show that everybody can go through the same experiences. A massive thank you to the WJ Group who sponsored the show, showing their commitment not just to mental well-being, but also to reaching as broad an audience as possible. It's great to be part of the mensradiostation.com family, so do check us out on the website, on social media. We'll be back next Monday. You take care. Stay safe, everybody. Well, good night, and we'll see